All right, guys, welcome back to our podcast. Another episode with Peter Kim and John. How are you, Peter?
Well, life is good.
I know we talked briefly about getting right into relationships. I think everybody has a lot to say about relationships. You're married, I'm married. We've had different relationships, good and bad. I know you also was counseling ever part of your ministry, or
I was what?
like counseling people? Was that ever part of your ministry? I can't remember if you told me that or not.
When you say counseling, I mean I was just sitting down with people who are experiencing homelessness and just talking to them, being a good listening ear. But I wouldn't say like an actual counselor or acted in the capacity of a counselor.
So I know one of the things that kind of impressed me when you told me, because I've known you for a while, and ever since you were dating, and then you found Rebecca, and during that process, you told me that you were kind of leaning into the best minds out there on relationships. You had read multiple books, you had talked to your pastor, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would love to hear more about that. I think there's a particular person or an author that you mentioned, and what he has to say about relationships. So
This is definitely a topic I'm really interested in. It's funny because I remember a specific moment where back in the day I would actually talk to I was talking in this group and I was saying to them that I want to talk on relationships and do relationship seminars. This is way before I ended up getting married, and I remember she like kind of laughed it off or like laughed at me because of what I said because I wasn't even dating at that time. And I think one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this is because even though I wasn't married, I was really interested in this topic. I don't know what it is within me that makes me. I mean, I was a psych major. I gravitated towards relationships and just human behavior in general. And it's just a passion of mine. Like I read, I don't even know how many books on relationships and human behavior and psychology type related books. And before I got married, I mean, I read several books on marriage, and the best books out there that I really trusted. And so, and obviously my marriage now, it will affect my marriage. I believe I have a healthy marriage. It hasn't been that long. We're only a few years in. At the same time, I believe we have right now a very healthy, dynamic, healthy marriage because of some of these habits that I've just kind of been working on to make sure that it remains healthy, even post baby, because that's the real challenge, right? When you're not sleeping, when you're tired all the time, and kids are, this and that, that's where the challenges really arise. So, we'll see how it fares, obviously when the kids get older. But yeah, this is definitely a very interesting topic for me.
so I know something I know about you is that you're very goal oriented, and you're very good at kind of parsing information in a certain way to have it be like bullet points. So in terms of what you've learned about having a relationship could be anybody. It could be between you and your parents. It could be, between other family members. But in particular about the husband and wife relationship, what are some things that you've learned that you can share?
Yeah, I think one thing I can take a little bit of pride on is that I do have healthy relationships in general. Now, the spousal relationship, there are things that I 100% use that also affects my spousal like relationship as well. And so the person that I would say there's The Meaning of Marriage by Timothy Keller, but one of the best researchers that out there that I follow is a guy named John Gottman. I don't know if people have heard of him or not, but he talks about the four horsemen of the apocalypse. So John Gottman, for people who don't know, he's a world-renowned psychologist who has done extreme, intense and extreme, and a lot of research on predictive behaviors of a divorce and also marital stability. And so I found that very interesting. I also love the fact that he is extremely data backed rather than, a lot of these psychologists, a lot of them write these books based off anecdotal evidence, right? And not real research like the way he does. And so the four horsemen of apocalypse, something that I follow, I thought was really good, are criticism. So criticism, attacking your partner's character or personality rather than focusing on a specific behavior or issue. Number 2, contempt, treating your partner with disrespect, mockery, or derision. This is considered one of the most destructive of the four horsemen. 3, defensiveness, responding to criticism by counterattacking or playing the victim rather than taking responsibility. And then number 4 is stonewalling, which is withdrawing from the interaction, shutting down and stopping to respond to your partner. This is often in a response to contempt. So those 4, I believe, are things that I try to be cognizant of within my marriage. And believe me, we're all guilty of these things. I am guilty of these things. I think one of the things that I struggle with is defensiveness, especially when I feel like my character is being attacked in any way. I immediately go on the defensive, like, no, I didn't do that. No, that didn't happen, right? I don't know about you. Did you ever struggle? Oh,
I never.
Are you, what was that word? Perfect?
I'm perfect. Yes.
Got it.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, I've dealt with that too. What is your first, so out of the 4, what is your first thing that is it possible to order them? Like, what's the first thing you think about as a topic of the 4 horsemen?
Well, we can talk about, personally for me, so there are antidotes to these 4 horsemen. I think one of the things that really I think is so important, even though they say contempt is one of the worst, is criticism. I believe criticism, or that critical spirit, is what it rots relationships.
Right.
And something that I'm actually a naturally critical person. I am very hard on myself. When I was younger, I actually used to be very hard on myself. I used to have this voice in my head. I don't know if other people have dealt with this before, but this voice in my head would constantly bring me down, constantly tell me like I'm not good enough, constantly, all the little things that I did wrong, I used to like beat myself up for it. I turned that critical spirit into my coach. That's a whole nother topic. But in marriages, what I've noticed is like, you can just see it in some relationships where you just see them fighting all the time. Now we fight, right? It's like that's a part of marriage, but you just see one person, or maybe 2 people. Eventually it's 2 people because you're just fighting each other, but you just see one person criticizing the other person constantly. And you see this like flower just whittled down to nothing,
right?
To this dead plant that's just barely alive. The leaves are browning, they're just dying. And I think that's one of the most, I guess for me, one of the most important things to fix. And there's ways to fix that. In my opinion. So
criticism.
Yeah. Attacking your partner's character or personality.
Where do you think the criticism or the critical mind comes from?
I think it comes from, so the reason why people become critical, I read this in a book. I believe it was either from Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People,
right. That's a great book.
Or it's from Robert Dreek's It's Not All About Me book that I found really good. But so I think there's 2 reasons why people are critical. Number 1, they become critical because they want to feel a little bit better. right? So it elevates their ego temporarily, and that's
Right.
why they bring someone down, because it brings them up. And that's why you see it in kids where they're bullying other kids. Kids are mean. When you're young, you just bully. You see the older
They're
brother
very
being a bully to the younger brother.
Yeah.
It happens, and I believe the reason why it happens is because it feels good to bring someone down, because it does bring you up a little bit. And so I think that's one of the bigger points. The second one is I feel like criticizing. Sorry, 1 second. I wrote this down.
That reminds me, it's going to make me look so bad, but I had a friend who used to tease me a lot. And one day in middle school, we found another kid that, like, he was he was actually a little bit disabled.
Here we go.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, we might have to cut this
hold
out.
on.
But I just want to touch on that topic. I mean, first of all, I was in middle school. I just want to say that. 12 years old, whatever it was. But me getting teased by my friend made me feel bad. But then when I found an opportunity to tease somebody else, actually together with the friend that teased me,
Yeah.
I felt good.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, oh, I can redirect this to somebody else. And I'm not going to get into details of how I teased them, because people will never talk to me again. But
Yeah.
I had to end up writing like a letter. Like the teacher made me write a whole letter to this kid.
Yeah.
And I remember that feeling is like, oh, I can actually deflect some of my pain, I guess, right? And I've been taking it. Now and I feel good about that, which was a terrible thing to do, thinking back. But I just wanted to share that story.
I think what you and I both experienced when we were younger was we were bullied, right? So I was one of the only Asian kids,
Sure.
and I'm pretty sure you were bullied as well. I know you talked about it. And I've always wondered, why do kids bully? Why do they do that? What causes them to do something like that? And I think that's honestly what a lot of it is. Like, you're deflecting, or you're just trying to protect yourself. Because again, there's that, like, it's like a fire, like a forest fire. It just keeps catching, and you're trying to like protect yourself.
Right.
I remember, so I was bullied in school, and I remember I also bullied kind of in church a little bit, because it's one of those things where it's just like, I feel this pain, and you just want to kind of do it to somebody else.
Right.
And that's where, I mean, when you're a kid, like, there's no judgment, because you're a kid. You didn't know any better. You just knew kind of what your natural instincts told you.
Exactly. Right.
Right.
Yeah. One thing I work on with my 7-year-old is, because he's hanging out with first graders to fifth graders, is like, I want to just create some sort of awareness, because I don't think the key to fixing anything is to just immediately dive into action. It's actually to be aware. Right.
Yeah.
So when I say to my kid, how was your day? Or what did you have struggles with? Or who did you help today? Or whatever it was. If he says something that I know is not good, but I think he did it instinctually because he was part of a group, for example, that was doing the same thing. I try to bring awareness to that. And I think about that a lot for myself, just to try to bring awareness to an issue and label it. So,
yeah. I think when you get bullied, you develop empathy. And that's why I have this sense in me, because I was bullied so much. I have this sense of injustice, of protecting those who are weak, because I was that person who was weak, and, people like bullying me for that. Right. And so definitely awareness, self-awareness is a big development, but you just don't have a lot of them when you're younger.
No, that's why you need adults and parents and, uncles and pastors and, so.
Yeah. And that actually touches on the second point, is actually a lot of people, the reason why they bully or they criticize other people is because they themselves have some hurt within them.
Right.
Hurt people hurt others.
Right.
That's typically how it runs. And that's why you have to stop that curse by, stop the hurt. And so I think a lot of kids or, a spouse, I think when they're hurt inside, they need to like, again, that psychological relief to like hurt others. They need to like deflect or push that towards somebody else. And I think that's the second reason why there's a lot of criticism out there and why it runs so rampant.
So you had the longest day. You're out all day. God knows there's tough jobs out there, right? I mean, we sell homes. I think it gets tough sometimes, but it's not really tough in terms of physical. I mean, so you're drained from the rest of your day. You come home, you're tired, and then you feel the critical mind just trying to attack your spouse, your kids.
Yeah.
What is the defense, or what is the thing that you do when you feel that? Like, how do you try to fix that desire?
Yeah, there are practical steps around this. First of all, you are not what you feel. I think that's the biggest BS that's out there right now. Joyce Myers, she's a famous pastor. It was one of the most impactful things that I've heard is that you are not what you feel. Society, movies, they all tell you that you are what you feel. Follow your feelings. I love John Wick,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
But one of the things about John Wick that it makes it seem really cool, but one of the things about him, sorry to ruin it for people, is that he takes revenge. He shoots the guy right at the end. It's all about revenge. And, there's lyrics like from Miley Cyrus, I do what I want, I will sleep or I will kiss who I want. And it's just like me, I do what I want. I don't believe that's how society should be run. Because if we follow what we feel, that means like, okay, if I don't find my wife attractive and I find another woman attractive, do I just sleep with her? Why not? Right? So if I don't feel like feeding my kids, I just don't feel like it. Do I not feed my kids? It's the biggest lie. I think I'm a Christian, so I believe that there is an enemy. I believe that is one of the deceptions of the enemy is to get you to believe that you should follow your feelings. And so when you feel these things, like, oh, I feel like criticizing my wife, you have to fight your feelings because that's what love is, right? Sin is, in my opinion, selfishness. Love is selflessness. What you're doing when you love, it's a verb. You're doing something that you don't feel.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I love that because love, it's like love is an action, which is what you said is a verb, right? And actions you can take a step when you don't want to because you're just telling your body to do that. That's the one thing I learned about love, and I thought most people don't really understand that. It's the feelings will go away. They'll come and they'll go, right? Whether it's lust or whatever the feeling is that got you together with your spouse, there's going to be good days and bad days. There's going to be days you're sick, things don't go right, something goes wrong. But love is an action that you have to, it's like promises you have to keep. So I love that part that you mentioned.
And I'll just make an addition. It's the weirdest counterintuitive thing because what the society tells you is that, oh, you should just, self-gratification, treat yourself first, right? Me first, right? What's funny is as you live that lifestyle of treating yourself first, you actually feel more empty inside. This is my philosophy. I'm not saying you have to, necessarily agree with it, but I have noticed, and I've also heard, mentors talk to me about this, who say if you follow your own desires, you just see what they don't have kids, they just follow what they want to do. It's empty at the end, and I see it empty at the end. I've been to parties, older people. Anyway, the point is that but when you see people who live in love, who's like self-sacrificing, who's giving, who's generous, and all these people. What's really funny about them is they're actually one of the most happiest people. A lot of our listeners might not be Christian, but I know I'm saying a lot of Bible references, but there is actually wisdom in the Bible. And it's funny how it says, basically it says that when you choose love, you feel more satisfied, you feel more happy, you feel more joy than if not. Like, and you also love those who you sacrifice for. It's weird. Like our kids,
Right.
they're not that lovable. You know what I'm saying?
Not
Like,
all
they're
the
cute.
time.
They're cute.
Not all the time.
Physically,
Yeah.
but I mean, a lot of the time they can be punks. And yet, as you just keep loving and pouring to your kid, that love just continues to grow. Does it not? Well, what do you think?
I think a lot of things that you're talking about are not what's popular, and the time horizon of things that you consider important are very short these days, right? I mean, they're literally doing studies on how your attention span is changing. You know, they're doing studies, I'm quoting some study I heard, but they do these tests where they can test an adult, like an adult, not kids who are developing, like adults, right? Who are paying attention to something, and the attention span on a video clip or whatever used to be minutes, now it's seconds. So everything is about the now, the immediate, how you feel, and it's the focus isn't on, hey, let's save money for the future. Let's label our feelings, which is what I was gonna say is to get like real practical is how do you're in the moment. I walked in the door. I want to pick a fight because I'm not feeling very good because my boss yelled at me or somebody got a promotion that I work way harder than them, but they, whatever, doesn't matter. So I think the first thing is, okay, you label that feeling or the emotion. Hey, I'm a little upset right now. Like I want to maybe lash out at my wife. I want to divorce the feeling from the action or what you should be doing.
Yes.
But yeah, I think the focus is just on short-term gratification, and it's almost not your fault because that's what society is really circling around. But the awareness brings it into your responsibility now, knowing that love is an action, it's a verb, it's things that you do even though you don't feel like it, right?
Yeah.
So then what other things can you do or can you use to battle criticism? And do you replace that with something like,
yes,
just imagine you're in the home, you just came home and you're feeling those things. How do you solve that situation?
Yeah. One of the best skills that my pastor has taught me, my pastor is my North Star when it comes to relationships. He has, he's in decades in his marriage. He's raised 4 wonderful kids. His marriage with his wife is still very strong. And he taught me what we call clean fighting. I actually have it printed and I have it
Clean
next
fighting. Okay.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, let's
You
get
ready?
into it. Yeah.
You ready?
Let's get into it.
I hope your wife's listening.
Yeah.
It's something that I thought that was really powerful. So, okay, let's take this to an actual example. The dishes, right?
Are we role playing right now?
Yeah, let me put my hat on. I'll be the wife. Hey, honey.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So this is good. Yeah.
Okay, so clean fighting. Let's just break this down. So, what do we typically do, right? So, listen, I'm just gonna. Let's just say I was the wife. Typically, if you don't do the dishes, right, and your wife watched the kids all day, whatever, husband comes home, but he's also really tired, right? So it's like there's this dynamic. It's like I just want to rest. I want to eat. I want to rest. My boss yelled at me, and so let's talk about the dishes. It's like, okay, wife cooked. It would be nice for you to help with the dishes, and so a lot of people, their natural instinct, because honestly, a lot of people don't know any better, would be to immediately criticize, like, you didn't do the dishes again, right? It's like, you never do the dishes. You're so lazy.
I'm stressed.
John.
I'm already stressed. Hey, I had a long day at work. I spent 12 hours working for this family. Sorry, I'm getting a little loud.
Oh, so you're saying I didn't work?
Okay.
Watching the kids? Okay, here we go.
I'm going to go into the garage
right,
and don't talk to me. Oh, wow, the water.
Yeah, the water thing.
I feel it. Okay.
Right, but
common.
That's a very common.
Very common,
right?
yeah.
So, but again, I just attacked your character. Like, you're so lazy. You didn't do the dishes again. You never do the dishes.
Right.
Right. And I'm talking. You see the tone. You see that, it's like I'm angry,
Right.
right? And so I think that's a very pertinent example. So rather than doing that, okay,
Rewind.
so you labeled a couple of things. First, you have to take a step back. When you're John Gottman talks about when you hit a certain beats per minute, when your heart rate is at a certain beats per minute, then you're not actually thinking clearly. You don't want to actually engage when you're in that kind of elevated status, right? So you have to kind of calm down. What you said was to label your feelings. Oh, I'm feeling angry right now. So you kind of have to have that self-awareness and just kind of back up a little bit. And then you got to engage. Even though it feels good to engage in those times, you have to back up and you have to engage in the right mind. And you have to stay emotionally sustained at a certain level, or else you're going to get into the places where, we've said a lot of hurtful things that we didn't really mean, but when we get to that place, you just want to hurt the other person. And so, again, maintain your emotions. And this is the way to do it. So you start with, I notice. Hey, John, I notice that you don't do the dishes after we eat. And then you state the problem. So I noticed the problem. And then you state why it is important to you. I value when the dishes are done because the next morning, when the dishes are done, I just feel so much better and I don't feel overwhelmed, especially when I have to watch the kid in the morning. Then you state why it's important to you. Then you have to fill the following sentence. I feel. So when you don't do the dishes at night, then you identify the feeling. I feel angry because I know the next day I feel these, overwhelming feelings and it just like really hurts my day.
Right.
Then you have to state clearly and respectfully and specifically like your request. Like after we eat dinner, can you do this? Can you clean the dishes? So the next morning I kind of have like a clean slate. So it's not really overwhelming. That's how to do it. Again, I notice blank. I value blank. I feel angry. I feel frustrated. And then ask what you want them to do very clearly. Does that all make sense?
That's great.
Yeah. It's hard to do. It's hard. You have to be emotionally like, boom.
It's very hard to do. And I'll add, just as a guy, right? Because I only know my own perspective. But for a lot of guys, I think, and this is something I've also heard from other, counselors, is that anger is not a primary emotion, or it's not the first thing that comes to mind. It's a cascade or a trickle from something else, right? And because men are, for many reasons, whether it's society or the way they're built, probably a combination thereof, it's easy for us to get to anger because it's very convenient. And this is really what I struggle with the most, is it feels good.
Yes.
It feels really good because, like I've trained martial arts. We're both into lifting weights and staying healthy and all these things. It's very familiar to us. It's kind of our primal state, right? And because it feels so good, it's actually reinforcing when you give into that feeling. I notice it when I have anger for myself or against myself, my wife, my kids. But it's really to know that the labeling has to come first. And like you said, if you don't feel like it's going to be like if your heart rate is already up, it's funny, but I heard Cesar Millan talk about this, the dog whisperer. He's like, when you train a dog, it goes from level 1, 2, 3, and then skips to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? So like you have to get yourself to a level 2 or 3 before you even have any. So you might want to take some breathing exercises or walk away. Yeah. Like, do you recommend just walking away when you can't control your emotions? Or what do you, because sometimes you might feel, maybe you're labeling yourself. Maybe, oh man, I'm getting really upset. You can label yourself too. I notice I'm getting really upset at my wife's comments. I might not have the strength or patience to deal with this right now. What do you do in those moments?
I wouldn't ask what I do, but what the principles, like first principles, are around this. And that is, it says in the Bible, be angry and do not sin. Again, whether you believe in God or not, it's one of the most beautiful things. You're going to feel angry.
Sure. Yeah.
That's not the sin. Feeling angry, even Jesus was angry.
Sure.
If you remember the whole temple thing, and people were buying and selling in the temple, it's okay to feel angry, but don't sin.
Right.
Because the sin part is where you get in real trouble. Reason why domestic violence exists. The reason why Alex can punch the kid who's like being mean to him, right? You don't want to get to that level. And so the answer is yes, walk away. Yes, take a breather. I had a homeless guy, and it's funny. His name is Greg. He also goes by Tiny. And Greg, he's a smart guy. He's totally capable. He's likable, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But one of the things that makes him keeps him homeless and makes him homeless is that he cannot control his anger. When he gets angry, he goes black. He blacks out.
Sure.
The biggest problem with that is that he cannot sustain, because there's actually a lot of programs that helps him, that even gives him a great housing. And I told Greg, anytime you get angry, just walk away. Just walk away. Right. Because he would beat up his boss, or he likes to fight. He would beat up his boss. He would fight with his apartment managers. He was talking about how, Peter, there was 9 cops, restraining me and holding me back. I was so angry. I was fighting everyone. And what I told Greg was, because it's the anger that gets him into trouble. What's funny is, ever since I told him that, and I kept reinforcing, Greg, stop, just walk away. He calls me and goes, Peter, I did exactly what you said. I got really angry and I just walked away. I walked away. He says that almost every time I met him. He kept saying that. And what's funny is, he's not homeless anymore. He got into an apartment and he remained in his apartment. I've actually been to that apartment. It's nice. It helps subsidize, right, for people who are experiencing homelessness or low income. But the reason why he's able to maintain his apartment is because he learned to walk away from those situations. Again, you get to that 90, I forget what it is. Don't quote me. It's like 90 beats per minute or something, where when you start getting a little crazy, you start blacking out, you have to walk away. Do breathing exercises, calm down, and come back and re-engage and try to stay level. Again, if you get elevated again, back away again, re-engage. You're not necessarily stonewalling. You're not necessarily avoiding them. You're just trying to be in a more level-headed area. Because once you get angry, do you think logically?
No, never. And that's the state that I know now, if I'm in that state, because silly things make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm thinking about, okay, because I'm scanning my environment. It's like, how much damage can I do? And I'm being real with you, right? Yeah. Like, what can I, I've had moments where I'm like, what can I throw? Or like, what can I hit? I mean, we've all been there, especially as guys. It's the anger. Again, it's not the primary emotion. It's hiding something. Most times it's like frustration or like anxiety, but you overrule it with anger because it feels good.
It feels good.
It feels so good to give into your anger. And then also to add on top of what you said, walking away could feel like a defeat. And then you realize, if you stay there and duke it out, I mean, I've struggled with guilt after the fight. Like, why did I do that? That was so dumb. It just wasn't the right thing to do. And yet in that moment, I felt justified because I just didn't walk away, and it keeps building up. So I think that's definitely a huge first step, is just to recognize, label, do some breathing exercises. I mean, there's tons out there that you could practice, whether it's breathing out more than in. I think that's a really simple one.
Yeah.
The double inhale by Dr. Huberman, the physiological sigh that he keeps talking about, the double inhale and exhale fully.
Yeah.
It's weird, But sometimes my wife and I will just get worked up a little bit and we'll both start inhaling and breathing. And it's like, okay, all right. This is a sensitive topic. But I feel everything you're saying because I've been through all of it.
It's like being drunk and expecting you guys to have a logical, like trying to do a business transaction together, or like trying to do
It's not gonna work.
something, like something very important together. You have to get sober. If you're not sober and you're in that state, you're gonna do dumb things.
That's what it is.
Here's the problem though. When you're giving into your anger, again, like follow your feeling, be angry, when you're giving into your anger, you can say or do something that creates a damage that can be very, very difficult to repair, if not be completely irreparable.
Yes. It's
Does that make sense?
again, I just every time I smile, it's because I feel guilty. I've been there. I've done that.
Yeah.
So then what's next? So you've subsided your anger. You've used those techniques that you mentioned. And then is there another part? What will be the next thing on the 4 horsemen that you think about after criticism?
Let's actually then transition into the defensiveness, because it kind of works in tandem with this topic here.
Sure. Oh yeah.
Because then what's the other side going to do, right? When they hear something like that, when they hear like, oh, you never do this, you never blah blah, and like, okay, you're getting fire's coming in, right? You're the Iron Dome, right?
Right.
What do you do? Sorry, it might be too pertinent right now with what's
it's all
going
real.
on.
Because as soon as you say those things, as soon as you do this, it's like I'm not really even hearing what you're saying.
Yes.
Because I'm thinking, here we go again.
Yeah.
So that's perfect. Okay. Yeah, let's talk about that.
This is something that I am guilty of, and I have learned, and I am learning to change my habits by making conscious decisions, right? So you have to be conscious about these things, because if you're just following your unconscious, you're just going to keep on the same pattern, right? So you have to, recognize, and then you got to do a different behavior opposite of what you feel. You don't want to follow your feelings. Okay, defensiveness. When my wife tells me something that I don't want to hear, I immediately this is what I always say.
Can you give us a real example, by the way? I want this to be real.
Well, I have to think about it. Games. Okay.
Games.
So,
okay.
this is going to be a sore topic. Here we go.
Games.
So I like video games.
Okay.
And I like playing video games.
Sure.
Right. And so sometimes we talk about how I play too much video games. So that's what she says. I play too much video games.
All right, that's a good one.
For me, I feel very logical. I feel like I actually track when I play video games. And when I actually track when I play video games, I play once or twice a week. That's typical, right? Now, that's not always, but that's typically how I do it. But so what I decided was, because we were doing clean fighting. We made an agreement to say I play Tuesdays and Thursdays at night after the baby's asleep. That's typically what it is. It's not that much, right? I can wait. I need
I feel
affirmation.
the defensiveness there.
So
sure.
Hear me out.
Tuesday, Thursdays. Okay.
Tuesdays,
All
and so immediately when she says, "Oh, you play too much video games," in my mind, boom.
Right.
I don't play too much video games. I play maybe on Tuesdays, but usually not on Thursdays. I don't play that much video games. Immediately, my guards are up. And what she really meant was, I also play phone games while we're watching TV. But then my immediate is, because for me, it's like, that's not really games.
Right,
I'm just
right.
trying to keep my mind busy.
Subjective.
Anyway, talking about defensiveness, it's not healthy. The best advice that I've heard is simply make sure the person seek to understand before you are understood.
Right.
Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. If people haven't read that book, one of the best books out there on relationships, on success, on business, on personal development.
Yes.
So he says that You, when, okay, so tell me, like, let's role play real quick. I play too much, talk about my games.
But you're gonna go play games again? Like
Yeah.
you're playing so much. Like I feel like you're playing way more than you promised you would.
What? Okay, so right there, rather than being like, no, you're wrong, because logically I'm like, you're wrong. But rather than doing that, you have to say, oh, so you feel like I'm playing too much video games?
Yes, that's how I feel.
So I'm just curious, why do you feel that?
Well, because you always go do your own thing, and I'm lonely. I need hugs.
You're lonely and you need hugs.
I need to be cuddled. Yeah,
Okay, you need to be cuddled.
that's
You
how I
wanna cuddle
recharge.
right now? Or is this is this role play getting a
It's
little
getting too real.
Okay, no, but okay, so
Sure. I mean, that's a real conversation I've had with I was my wife at that point.
yeah.
Yeah.
But do you see what I did there with so
Right.
I reflected what they said. Sometimes, okay, the beginner level, I teach this in my classes, by the way. The beginner level is that you just simply repeat what they said. Oh,
Right.
so you feel like I've been playing too much video games?
Yeah.
And when you repeat, they actually start talking even more. If you want to be the best conversationalist out there, all you really have to do is repeat or paraphrase what they say and just keep doing that, and they'll just keep talking and keep talking.
They'll keep talking.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So with
Yeah.
with your spouse, you want to really, that's like level 1. The level 2 is to
Yes.
paraphrase what they said in
Yes.
your own words.
Yes.
And then a lot of the time they try to clarify. Level 3 is when you emotionally label
Right.
that what they're saying. Oh, so you felt angry when you blah 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 blah. That's like the
highest level.
the highest level there, and that's when they feel really understood. The reason why you should not skip this point, the reason why, even though it takes a lot longer, why this is going to pay dividends, is because once they feel understood, sometimes girls just want to feel understood. That's really, they just want to feel heard. You know what I mean? Has
Guys
Jessica
too.
ever said-
Guys too. Okay.
oh, yeah. Maybe you're more feminine than no. My wife tells me that all the time, right? So they just want to feel heard. Like
Right.
they don't necessarily need you to fix things or anything. Just make them feel heard. And it's vice versa as well. Guys also need to feel heard, because when you do that, then that defensiveness goes, it reduces, if that makes sense. And then once they feel fully heard, and it's going to take a while, admittedly, but once they feel fully understood, like their point was fully understood, then you talk about, well, here's the thing. We made an agreement saying that I would play on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I have been playing Tuesdays and Thursdays, but I think right now the issue is that I play phone games, and you don't like when I am not fully focused, I'm fully with you. Does that sound right? So that's actually where the pivot comes in, where I can talk about the way I feel, because you don't want to just hold that in, but you have to do that once the person's fully vented. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm gonna double down on that because, as you know, we're real estate professionals and we talk about negotiations a lot. And I think some people think, and I used to think the same way, where negotiations, like a successful negotiation, isn't to beat people up and to get what you want.
Yeah.
It's actually to make that other party feel understood.
100%.
So when I feel like I have completely understood the other agent's point of view, where they're literally telling me things that they would never have told another agent, just because I was like labeling, repeating, mirroring.
You're using all the skills.
I'm not really, so the objective isn't to win, because that's what most people think is that I'm going to get in there, I'm going to beat them up, I'm going to get $10 off, whatever, the extra coupon, I'm going to exchange this thing. But it's really just the goal for me now is to go in there. And the first step is just to feel like you understood their story, that they feel understood. And then I call it the privilege moment. The privilege moment opens up where then changes can be made.
Yeah.
So I think the first goal isn't to win, it's just to be there and be understood. And what a lot of people also don't know is that when you do that, when you mirror and label and repeat, your brain waves start syncing. Like they've done studies on these things, right? So I will double down and say, I agree with that. And if that's the one thing you can try today with your friends, whoever, and I think feminine labeling or masculine labeling looks and feels and sounds different.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm not going to get into that, but it's a huge thing.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So one thing that I have to talk about is that just to kind of like, kind of go on this point and kind of go on this topic here. One of the things that I so recommend is that when the person does do the thing that you want them to do, you have to show so much appreciation for that other person.
Right.
I think that's so important. Again, like you're lower down your defenses, make sure the person's understood. And once you understand and we're in agreement, that's the one thing that a lot of people don't do. They're great at breaking them down when they do something wrong and slapping their hand. It's not going to work anywhere near as good as if you make them feel appreciated, validated, and secure. And so when they do the dishes, that's when you want to overwhelm them with love and appreciation. Because what do human beings want the most? Like,
love.
They want to feel validated. They want to feel loved. They want to feel appreciated. Human beings desire most importance. They want to feel important. And when you're breaking them down and just telling, well, I'm sure this is probably a reason why a lot of people cheat, right? A lot of people like do all these bad things because they just they're not getting that fulfillment. When I see relationships where it's just so much appreciation for each other, that's actually one of the antidotes, by the way, admiration and fondness. When you show that appreciation, that changes the dynamic of the relationship like crazy. And so when they do the dishes, it's like, thank you so much. I do this all the time to Rebecca, and Rebecca does it to me. And it's a beautiful thing where I know how hard it is to watch the kids. And so when she watches the kid, I keep validating her, saying, thank you so much. I know this was super hard to do, but thank you for watching the kid. When she does the dishes, thank you so much for doing the dishes. Honestly, it was like, I'm really tired, and you took care of that. And when they're in that kind of, when you positively reinforce them, which is way more impactful than negatively enforcing, when it comes to the context of relationships, you're going to get, because the negative reinforcement, that's going to get you quick patch fixes, right? But if you want long-term constant habituation, you positively reinforce, make them feel appreciated, and they're going to want to keep doing it again because they want that validation. They want that importance and appreciation.
And I just want everybody to know that all this stuff, it's going to take time. It's going to take practice. You're going to fall off your horse.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just a cultural thing or a historical thing, because this was not talked about before. And even now, it's just not enough. So you may have grown up, a lot of us, seeing a certain way of being with your spouse, whether it's, people are just trying to survive back in the day, right? Our parents are just trying to make sure we were fed and clothed and went to a nice college, had a good career, whatever it was. But I would argue that this is new to a lot of us. And I do believe my kids are watching. That's why I try to show the right kind of affection to my wife. I compliment her. And sometimes the kids are giggling in the background and like, oh, they're kissing again or whatever. But I really make it a point to show my wife that love and respect, because I know that I would want it's going to sound a little cheesy, but I would want my kids, because I have 2 boys, to marry somebody like their mom, because their mom is kind. She's all these qualities that I would look for and I would hope that they end up with. So I think you're right. Positive reinforcement. If it feels awkward, you just got to keep doing it until it becomes natural. And just everybody you meet, a little compliment doesn't hurt. it greases so many wheels in many different ways. So I love that advice.
Oh gosh, what's his name? Oh gosh, yeah, Dale Carnegie. Oh, is Andrew Carnegie? I forget. Anyway, the guy who wrote How to Win Friends and Influence People, he says,
Some Carnegie, yeah.
yeah. He says, famous book, by the way, be hearty in approbation, lavish in praise. And he said that the most powerful, most impactful CEOs were actually way more lavish in praise than you would think, right? Because you would think CEO, boss, right? It's like, oh, criticism, criticism. Again, that works, even in business, that works temporarily. And then you could turn and burn like Amazon. You could just keep, oh, you're not doing your job. Next. But if you want a really healthy and long-term organization, an impactful organization, create an environment of praise, of, people just being appreciative. And you're going to create such an amazing work organization, and people are going to love it. I just wanted to mention real quick about our parents. I used to judge my parents truthfully on their marriage. And I think one of the reasons why I used to do that is because I just saw them fight all the time, and they're just constant.
Sure. Yeah.
And what I realized, though, I think as I've gotten older, what I've realized, the big difference between this generation and our parents' generation is we have knowledge, because we're born into the information age, right?
Sure. Yeah.
We have the World Wide Web, and we have all of this knowledge that they did not know back then. And so my judgment and criticism has actually reduced a lot towards my parents. I have these expectations. Why don't you know this? You've been married for X many years.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? And then what I realized is, no, they didn't focus on, the perfect marriage and all these skills. They focused on surviving and making sure there was food on the table. So can you really judge them, for their marriages?
Yeah. I mean, our parents both dealt with bankruptcy and some losses in their lives, and they're just trying to keep everything together.
Yeah.
Just trying to
their sole focus.
Exactly. And I don't, I give a lot of thanks to my parents now, simply because, we would never be here. We would never have been raised this way if it wasn't for our parents' sacrifice, and as a parent, I continually remind myself to be thankful to my parents are divorced. I'm lucky enough to have 4 parents now, right? I have a stepmom, stepdad, and I constantly want to recognize them. And even though they don't necessarily have all the tools that we have on the emotional level, I think that's where we came from. And then our job is to make this a 2.0 and then a 3.0 for the kids.
Right.
And the kids are watching. As parents, I know we put more pressure on ourselves to be better, because they just copy everything you do.
Yeah.
I mean, my little kid is becoming a copycat of me, and I'm like, oh, I do that? That doesn't feel good. Or that I do that's really nice. So we talked about criticism. We talked about defensiveness.
Yeah.
I think that's a lot to have covered.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah. I think we could always do a part 2, part 3. I think one of the things I just want to say, as kind of just to wrap some of this up, is, sorry, I'm going to say another Bible reference. It's like, it's better to be on the corner of a rooftop or to be in a desert than to be with a quarrelsome wife. That's literally what it says. It sounds really funny, but
wow.
It's probably one of the most wisest things. And I say that because it's like, okay, what is a quarrelsome wife? And this could be a man as well, right? So I'm not just picking on women, but the one who like nags and huffs and sighs and challenges her husband's authority, and she grumbles. This is not from me. This is from a lady called Kayleen Yoder. And the person who she reminds him of his past failures, right? And just keeps going back into those things, degrades him verbally. And the one who says, why don't you do like why don't you do like so and so, right? Comparing yourself. You
comparison.
never blah blah blah. I've told you over and over. I can't stand how that kind of person. My advice to the single person is, if there is a person like that you're with, I would say avoid them. Quite honestly,
It's not worth it.
it's not.
I mean, you might get into a relationship with the external, but then you really stay in it for the internal. And beauty fades. Everything fades except the things that you work on that keep getting better, your character, your morality, spirituality. And, I think the Bible does have a lot of good things in it, whether or not you're a Christian. There's so much wisdom in sayings like that,
Yeah.
because you can hold those in your pocket, so to speak. You can have it and just bust it out. Oh, this saying you can kind of latch onto, because you need shortcuts in life, and sometimes the shortcuts are already there, and you just need to look at the right places. Yeah, I think that's a lot, and I think that's a lot to reflect on. I know that we have 2 more things to cover next time. But yeah, if there's any last words you want to add before we finish, go ahead, and I think we can wrap.
Yeah, next time we could talk about the emotional bank account. One of the most powerful things that I've learned.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about the avoider, right? The people who stonewall, which there's a lot of people who can stonewall and just kind of keep things in, and then all of a sudden, boom, explode, break up.
Oh, that's been me. That's been me. I deal with that.
So let's unpack that, because one of the things I really appreciate about Rebecca is actually that she lets me know when there's a frustration, because the great thing about that is, even though it's uncomfortable, it pays dividends in the future, because she's not holding on to anything. She's not developing bitterness, which a lot of us do. I want to avoid this conflict. I don't want to deal with this right now, or I don't want to, mess with the relationship. We're only
Right.
3 months in. The problem is that when you do that, it's compounding interest.
Oh yeah.
And you're not actually doing a good thing. You're actually just deferring to the future and making it harder. And so I think that's where we should probably unpack some of these things later.
So the next one would be stonewalling, and what's the other one?
Yeah, let's do stonewalling and then contempt, which is treating your partner with disrespect, mockery. That's something that men, honestly, I'm going to talk to the men here, they have to be careful of, because they make fun of their wives. But I actually don't like the way they do that. Because actually, like when wife says something, I'm just going to talk in generals, right? It's like when the girl says something that is like off, or like, dumb or whatever, just making them feel really bad.
Right.
And I don't think that is, or making a mistake, like, I told you so. I think that's one of the most unhealthy things that you could do, because you're creating a place where they're actually becoming like lesser people. They're becoming dumber. They're becoming more afraid of trying things. And so I'm not going to get into it, but that is something
There's a lot to uncover
that we should uncover next time.
Yeah, we should almost bring our wives onto the podcast,
Are you?
Well, they might be crying, but
We'll just do active fighting. So we'll just fight with each other on camera.
like, I'd love to hear from Rebecca, honestly. And I'm not just saying that, but we can work on that later.
Can I just say, like, what's funny is like because she also is very like studied. She does a lot of these good practices. She like learns them, but she's such a doer. And like she does all the appreciating. She does the whole like she avoids stonewalling, and it really makes like I would contribute our relationship to Rebecca at the end of the day, and I'd love for her to be on.
Oh,
All right,
you're so sweet.
Okay, here we go.
All right, I think that's pretty good for today.
Yeah, last thing I'll say, guys, is again, we take time out of our busy days to make this content, and so we're very small time. Every like counts and every subscribe counts. So if you could please like and subscribe to our channel, We would really appreciate it, and we'll continue on with these in-depth studies about relationship, health, and finance. That's it. Bye.